Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for hopping on this training call this afternoon. As of right now, it looks like we have over 100 people on the line, and the numbers keep on growing every second. We've got folks from Texas, New York, Iowa, Colorado, California, Georgia, so many other places. And I'm so excited to get a chance to talk to you all about using social media to improve your activism and organizing skills. So my name is Natalie, and I'm the communications manager here at UltraViolet. And I'm also joined by my colleague Ryan, who is our deputy field director. We know that many of you are busy and have a lot going on with your lives, so we really do appreciate you taking the next hour out of your day and spending it with us. And we promise to be concise and efficient. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you have not only joined this conference call line and that you can hear us, but that you also join the visual interface portion of the training so that you can see the presentation as we move through it. So again, for those of you who haven't joined the web portion yet, all you need to do is click the screen sharing link in step 3 from the registration and reminder emails you received and just follow the prompts. And if you've done that correctly, you should see a teal and purple title slide that says How to Win with Social Media and Look Like a Rock Star, which is the title of today's training. And if you can't join the screen share interface for whatever reason, you can also access these slides and follow along manually at weareultraviolet.org/training. All right, so quickly, I want to go over the agenda for our training today. First, Ryan and I will be doing some brief introductions. Second, we will move into some background information on social media. Third will be a section on using Facebook to mobilize your community. Our fourth section will cover some really great information on reaching your decision makers and politicians on social media. And finally, we'll do a section on how to take powerful photos and videos before wrapping up and answering questions. Also, there will be a few minutes for questions in between sections as well. All right, and with that, we'll dive into introductions. So as I said earlier, my name is Natalie Green, and I'm the communications manager here at UltraViolet. I manage all of UltraViolet's social channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I develop content to help us reach all of you and reach millions of people, including decision makers across the country. And now let me kick it over to Ryan, who will introduce himself and then run through our first couple sections in the agenda.
Thank you. And yeah, I just want to echo Natalie and say how incredibly grateful and excited I am to have all of you here with us today. As Natalie said earlier, my name is Ryan Rastegar. I'm the Deputy Field Director here at UltraViolet. Basically, my job is to support each and every one of you as UltraViolet members in taking action offline and organizing in your communities in the fight for women's rights and equality. So whether that's by showing up at your representative's office, doing things like in-district meetings, maybe organizing local protests. Basically, if you've led an offline action in your community with UltraViolet over the last couple of years, then I've probably talked to you at some point, either on the phone or over email. All right, so next, on this next slide, we're going to walk through some basic background information on social media just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So social media is a really great tool to use in order to have an impact. It's a place where real conversations happen that actually impact our public discourse. It's a place where people share their real life stories, and we're seeing that now more than ever before. Politicians and the media and the general public are all paying close attention to what's happening on social media. Obviously we're in some tough times politically, right? We have a president who's an admitted sexual predator. We have a Supreme Court that's stacked against us. We have a split Congress. And horrible policies are just coming out all the time, from attacks on healthcare to immigration to abortion access. The good news is that people are connecting through social media. People are making plans with each other to show up and to protest. They're sharing photos and videos of those protests with politicians. And we're really using social media as a tool to fight back. And we're seeing that it's working. So from things like the Women's March to the Me Too movement and so many others, women and allies are fighting back. We're using social media to strengthen our movement, and we're changing the actual narrative and policies that are coming out of Washington and across states, in large part because of what's actually happening on social media. So on to the next slide. There are a few specific reasons why social media specifically is such a useful tool for organizing and activism. The first is that social media really allows you to tell your own story. So like traditional media, social media is a tool that allows us to tell stories about what's happening and what's important in our communities. But unlike traditional media, social media does not depend on things like a reporter showing up and covering your story for you, or the news board of your local newspaper deciding whether or not to run your story. With social media, you have the power and the platform to put out your own story into the world and have that story be shared with other people who care, people who can relate to it and interact with it by liking it, resharing it, and spreading it and your story to their friends in a fun and easy way. On the next slide, we see that the second reason that social media is such an important tool for organizing and activism is that it's a two-way street. So again, with traditional media sources like TV, radio, newspaper, things like that, you're able to communicate one way with the public. So for example, if you have an important story or something important is happening in your community, maybe it gets covered, maybe a reporter shows up, or maybe you actually get a letter to the editor published in your local newspaper. People will see that story. Your legislators and elected officials will often see that story. And this is all great. But oftentimes with traditional media, the story ends there because it's only a one-way street. Social media, however, really allows us to have ongoing conversations with people, with our politicians, with our friends and supporters, all in a really public way. People are then able to take your story, to take your message, and respond to it publicly, and interact with you and provide reactions in real time, which basically means that topics and issues and movements can often take on a life of their own and grow to far greater reaches than what traditional media sources have historically been able to support. And then on the next slide, the last reason why social media is an important tool for organizing and activism is because it's a place where so many people are spending time. One of the greatest principles that we often talk about in organizing is to meet people where they're at, which means that if you want to connect with people, if you want to get them caring and get them involved and working with you, then you have to meet them where they're at. And that means both physically and emotionally. And in 2019, we're seeing that the place where so many people are at every single day is social media. And the numbers, really back that up. So, for example, on Facebook, we're seeing that there are more than 2.3 billion active users on Facebook, including 68% of Americans. Nearly 1.5 billion of those people log in every single day, which is just astounding. On Twitter, again, huge numbers here, over 320 million active users. Nearly all U.S. Congress members are active on Twitter. For example, 70% of Twitter users say they use it to get their news in some form or another. And then the last platform that we'll touch on today is Instagram, which has over 1 billion active users. It's the second largest social media platform, second only to Facebook. The average user spends about 30 minutes per day on Instagram, which also seems like incredibly high. And Instagram is really great. It's a really great platform and tool for sharing videos, and we're seeing that increase more and more throughout the years. All right, so that is just a little bit of background and information on why social media is such a great and useful tool for organizing and activism. Moving on to the next slide, we're going to jump into the next section, which is talking about how you can actually use Facebook to mobilize in your community. And we're going to touch on two tools within Facebook that I think are just really great resources for organizing. The first is Facebook events, and the second is Facebook groups. But before we jump into that content, moving to the next slide, I want to just do a few poll questions here to see where everyone is at with their Facebook experience. So the first poll I want to do is press 1 on your phone now if you simply have a Facebook account and you use it somewhat regularly. Go ahead on your phone right now, just press 1 if you use Facebook, if you have a Facebook account and you get on somewhat regularly. And we'll just see where folks are at in this. Great. I see lots of folks chiming in. These numbers are going up. We're past 65%. We're nearing almost 70%. Yeah, it looks like about 68, 69% of you, 70% of you are on Facebook. Awesome. Okay, let's do the next poll. So now I want you to press 2 on your phone if you've ever attended an event that you heard about or saw on Facebook. So, this could be any type of event. It could be a community meeting. It could be, a social event like a birthday party or a concert or something. It could even be something political like a protest or something like that. I'm just curious if you yourself have ever attended an event in person that you either heard about on Facebook or saw on Facebook. Okay, cool. That's about 60% of you. Great. So quite a few of you as well. All right, and then the last poll I want to do, just to see where folks are at, I want you to press 3 on your phone now if you yourself have ever created a Facebook event. So again, this could be for anything, any type of event. Just curious if you have ever actually created a Facebook event yourself. So press 3 on your phone now if that is you. All right, we're seeing some drop off a little bit. We're at about 44, 45% of you, which is still very high. So that's great. I'm glad to see that so many of you are active and at least somewhat familiar with some of these tools on Facebook. Wonderful. All right, so on to the next slide. Let us talk a little bit about Facebook events specifically. So Facebook events are great for so many reasons. First of all, a Facebook event is a great way to publicize any type of gathering, from small private planning meetings to great big public protests that you want the media to cover, and anything in between. A Facebook event is just a really great way to organize all the details, to get the word out, and to start planning. I often like to think of making a Facebook event as similar to like putting up a poster on a community bulletin board at like your local coffee shop or the library or something like that. On top of that, Facebook events lend themselves really well to word of mouth because they allow people to easily share the event online and invite other friends, which is really great for attendance. Facebook events are really good for planning and gauging interest for your gathering because you can clearly see how many people are RSVPing right there on the event page. So you will often have a really good idea of how many people are planning to show up, which gives you, the host or the organizer, a better idea of what you actually need to make a successful event. Facebook events are really great for giving attendees updates. So, for example, if you need to change the meeting place or the meeting time, you can do that all right on the Facebook event. You can also keep attendees engaged and talking with one another and connecting with one another in the weeks and the days leading up to your event because there's a discussion board right on the event page, which is really great to keep folks engaged. And then lastly, Facebook events are just really fun. They're very easy to make, and they're interactive. So on this next slide, I want to go over 6 quick and easy steps for making sure that your Facebook events are successful. So my first tip for you is to make sure that the title, description, and the event photo accurately reflect what the event is about. So think of the title and the event photo. This is actually what's going to show up on people's news feeds when they see the Facebook event. So you want to make sure that whatever event you're organizing, that the title is short, it's compelling, and it quickly describes exactly what the event is. The photo with the cover photo of the event should be something relevant and compelling if possible. And then in the event description is where you can sort of get into all the details. So that's where you typically answer the who, what, when, where, and why. You can give directions if you need to. You can make sure that your main message and the reason for organizing this event is clear. Just be sure to provide a good amount of information and details in the event description. My second tip is to carefully choose whether or not you want to make this event public or private. You will decide this at the very beginning when you first start making your event, and once you choose, you cannot go back and change it after. So if you decide to change which type of event it is, public or private, you'll actually have to delete the entire event and start over again. Generally, I say that, if you want lots of people to come, like if this is a protest or a town hall meeting or something like that, you should make the event public. If it's supposed to be, like a small private gathering, like maybe you're hosting like a planning meeting at your house or something, then you can make the event private. Just be sure that you're choosing deliberately at the very beginning. Tip number 3 is to make sure that your event details are always correct. So make sure that things like time and location are right. Double, triple check those. And if things do change, make sure that you update it in the event immediately so that your attendees can plan accordingly. My 4th tip is to invite everybody. Do not skip on the invitation list, especially if you're trying to organize something where you want a big crowd, especially if you think that members of the media might show up. I often tell folks to basically invite everybody that's on your friends list that lives in the same town as the event that you're doing. And then after that, ask folks to invite, 5 more of their friends. And this will really help spread the word and make sure that people just beyond your own friends network actually get to see the event. Tip 5 is to post in the event regularly and encourage discussion and participation on the event page in the lead up. So you can do this by posting things like announcements, related news articles, updates on how the planning is going. You could post messages of excitement as the day approaches, things like, I can't wait to see you all on Tuesday. How many people is everyone planning on bringing? The event should feel like there's really momentum building right up until the time of the event. And the way that you do that is by posting regularly on the event page. And then my last tip is to just post a thank you message after the event is over to everyone who came. Definitely include any photos you took from the event, as well as any news coverage or maybe any details about the next event that you might be doing to make sure that folks continue to stay engaged after your event is over. And then on the slides here on the right, Natalie has actually made a really great 3-minute tutorial video on how to make a Facebook event if you're unfamiliar with that. And then beneath that is a link to Facebook's website where they actually have more great resources and information on creating Facebook events. And then on this next slide, I wanted to include an example of a really great Facebook event here. So this was a sign-making party that UltraViolet hosted in Washington, D.C. Right before this most recent Women's March in January. So we invited folks who were coming into D.C. from all over the country to join us for like a welcome social. We provided lots of poster board and markers and paint and all that stuff for folks to make signs to bring with them the next morning to the actual march. The link to the Facebook event is also here on the slide, so when you have the slide, you can go click around and explore that event later. So you'll see here, first we have a very compelling cover photo, a very clear title that describes exactly what the event is. We responded to folks' questions throughout in the lead up, especially about location and directions and parking. On the day of, we posted, a post saying that we were super excited to see everybody and just like an update on everything that we would have. And then lastly, after the event was over, we posted a thank you message with photos from the event. So that's a little overview on how to effectively use the Facebook events tool to mobilize in your community. Next, I do just want to touch briefly on Facebook groups on this next slide. Facebook groups are a really great resource to use if you want to be able to share frequent news updates and events with an established network of people who are already sort of like collaborating and working together. I will say that Facebook groups can be a lot of work because they do require you to moderate. It requires you to make sure that you have regular posts so that group members don't lose interest, and all that can take time for sure. But I did want to just briefly mention them here because I think that the payoff can be incredibly worth it, especially if a large majority of your network already uses Facebook, and especially if you feel like you all often need to share news and photos and have discussions with the same group of people regularly, or if you attend events together regularly or things like that. So if you feel like this sort of describes a network of folks that you work closely with, then it might be time to consider creating a Facebook group. Facebook actually does have a lot of really great information on creating and managing Facebook groups on their website. So the link is here on the PDF version of the slides that you can check out and click around if you need it. And that is all I have on this section of using Facebook to mobilize your community. I want to pause here and just take a little bit of time to answer any questions on this section. So if you have a question right now on your phone, go ahead and press 1, and we will take just a couple minutes to call on some folks. All right, I see a couple folks chiming in. Let's go to Tom in North Carolina. Tom, you have the mic. What's your question?
Hi, this is Tom. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm 3 weeks from now when I'm trying to do this and I'm befuddled. Will this still be available at this location to look at and hear again?
Yes, great question. So we are actually recording this presentation, and we will send that out to folks probably tomorrow, along with a copy of the slides in a PDF format, so that you can, peruse this at your leisure.
Great, that's wonderful. I'm involved with also with Medicare for All, and this would be perfect for our local group.
Wonderful, wonderful, great to hear. All right, thank you for that. That was an important question. Appreciate that, Tom. Let's do another one. Let's go to Janine in Massachusetts. Janine, you have the mic. What's your question?
I had the same question, so thank you.
Great, wonderful, thank you. All right, let's go to, here. We have Denise in Wisconsin. Denise, you have the mic. What's your question? Denise, are you there?
Yes, I am. When you use Facebook to mobilize your community, as you're saying in this set of slides, how often do you have to change the look of your invitation or your information? Do you think you have to update it and change it so people don't think they're seeing the same thing all the time, or how often do you have to make some edits or changes?
That's a good question. Are you talking about your own personal profile page, or are you talking about regular events that you might be hosting?
Well, for example, I'm with League of Women Voters, and we're doing a big event on school funding, and we're working hard to build our crowd. We've been promoting it for about 4 weeks, but if you do the same invitation, like the one for your DC meeting and sign making party, if you use that same heading over and over again, people might think, oh, I've already seen this, I'm just going to delete it. How do you keep it fresh and keep it out there to keep building people, but also to remind people that might have said 4 weeks ago, I'm interested in this, but then they forget about it because they keep deleting it because they think they've already addressed it.
That's a really great question. Yeah, I think so. I guess I would say, so if it's on the same Facebook event, so if you are planning 4 weeks out, and you make your Facebook event for something that's a month away, I think that you don't need to change the title or the cover photo of the Facebook event if you're using that same event page for the next 4 weeks, because I hear your point that you say some people might get tired of it or think I already saw this. But I actually think if it's you're planning for the same event and it's 4 weeks out, keeping the same photo and the title will actually create continuity, and will make people realize oh yeah, this is the same event that I said I was interested in 4 weeks ago, and it's happening, it's coming up, and so I feel that way they won't get confused. If you're doing a series of Facebook events, I also, and they're all sort of on the same topic, I also tend to think that keeping the look and the feel can also be good, just again for continuity's sake, to sort of hold in people's minds that yeah, this is part of the series. I think if you're doing multiple events, I think it might make sense to change the title a little bit, especially if you're going to be talking about different topics at each of the different events, like, if like you're going to do one topic one time, then I think maybe, maybe say like part 1 in the title and like include that. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it just reconfirmed what I had already kind of felt, that you had to keep that continuity. I had a second part to my question, and that is when you put up a interested, going, can't come, or whatever, kind of an RSVP on your event, how can you track who those individuals are that respond, or will it show up if it's the same person saying, well, I've already RSVP'd to this, but maybe I need to do it again, or something like that? How can you effectively use that RSVP, interested, going, not going, to get an idea of your crowd size?
So typically, and I think that this is going to vary for sure from audience to audience, but at least when we plan events and we do like a Facebook event here at UltraViolet, we often tend to see that the number of people who actually show up is anywhere from like 1/3 to maybe like a half of the number that actually say that they're interested or going on the Facebook event, which is similar to actual real life field organizing. We often see like if you're planning a meeting or something like that, and let's say 20 people have verbally said like, yes, I will be there. Oftentimes it's a rule of half. It's like you can expect maybe 10 people to show up, and I think that honestly a lot of that does carry over to Facebook as well. A lot of those same numerics and principles.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let's do one more. Let's go to, let's see here. I think I saw one from Monica in Louisiana. Monica, you have the mic. What's your question?
I'm a little concerned about the public versus private. We have a lot of concerns here in Louisiana, and we don't want to be public before we're really ready for a big event. So when you choose public or private, do you then have to make a whole new event page to make it public?
Yeah, really great question. So basically, once you make the Facebook event, and you'll choose at the very beginning whether it's a public thing or a private thing, once you hit create on that Facebook event, it's set in stone, and you can edit a lot of things in the event. Like you can edit the time and the location and the description and the title even and the photo. But the one thing that Facebook does not allow you to edit is whether or not it's public or private, and that's for privacy reasons, right? Because let's say you do a private event, and then you invite a bunch of people, and a bunch of people say on Facebook like, okay, yeah, I'm going to this, thinking this is a private event, so no one's going to see it. Facebook wants that to stay private because they don't want you to be able to then a couple days before make the whole event public, and then those people who RSVP'd on Facebook will be like, well, what the heck? I thought this was sort of like a private thing. I didn't necessarily want everybody to know that I was going to this. So one suggestion I might say is if you have a smaller core group that you're maybe trying to plan an event with, maybe make a private Facebook event and just invite those folks, and maybe tell those folks that they can invite other folks to that private event. Then maybe create a second public event once you have all the details nailed down and you're for sure this event's going to happen, and when and where and all that stuff. Make a public event that everybody can recruit for, and that way you can sort of build public momentum, and friends of friends will start to see it. Public events definitely get way more visibility, I'll say, than private events. So
okay, so I get that I have to make a new I make a new event page when I want to make it public. Can I use the same event page when I want a second meeting with the private group, or do I have to make a new event page each time we have a meeting?
That is a good question. Yeah, Natalie, do you actually know the answer to that?
I think if you plan on having multiple events, it's best to create multiple event pages.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question, but I think you would definitely need to create more than one event.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. All right, those were all really great. There will be more time for questions at the very end, but I do want to move on into our next section, so I will pass it back to Natalie.
Thanks, Brian. Next, we're going to talk about how to reach decision makers on social media. But first, I want to do a poll to get a sense of everyone's experience. So the question here is, how often do you engage with decision makers on social media? So press 1 if you engage with them all the time. Press 2 if you contact them maybe once a month or once a week. Press 3 if you contact them just a few times a year. And press 4 if you've never engaged with a decision maker on social media. And while you're submitting your answers, I'll quickly review what I plan on covering in this part of the training. So first, I'll go over some simple strategies for reaching corporations and elected officials on Facebook and Twitter. And we're focusing on those two platforms because every major company and member of Congress is active on those platforms, from Fox News and Target to Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell to your state legislators. And social media is how they spread their message and receive direct feedback from the public. Social media pressure also supports your offline action. While people in power care about petition signatures and calls, they also really care about seeing evidence of people caring enough about the issue to visit their office or hold a sit-in or a protest. So the results are in, and it looks like about 20% of you have never reached out to a decision maker on social media, so this will be pretty new for you. And then we have another 15 to 20% who have only done it about a few times a year, and then the rest of folks who maybe do it once a month or all the time. So for those who have this experience, it's great to see that you have used social before, so hopefully this can just help you hone in on skills and get some useful tips. And for those of you who this is new, you'll learn some basic tips for getting your posts in front of decision makers. So on to the next slide. I'm going to talk about reaching decision makers, specifically elected officials, on Twitter. Almost every single member of Congress and most state legislators are active on Twitter. So the first thing is I'd recommend after this call making sure you follow them there if you don't already. And I know that some people are not as active on Twitter, but it's really a great way to see what your legislator is talking about every single day. And there are some legislators who use Twitter 5, 10, 20 plus times a day. Always be sure to tag with the @ your member of Congress in live videos, photos, and posts, and include your district hashtag. So to tag your member of Congress, you type the @ on Twitter, and then you start typing their name. A drop-down will show up, and you can select the right person. And they typically, if it's someone who's in Congress, for example, they will most likely have the blue check next to it to verify that they're your actual senator or representative. You want to include your district hashtag because members of Congress, local activists, and very importantly, reporters all scan those hashtags to see posts about what's happening. So to do that, you just use the # and then your state abbreviation and district number. For example, if you lived in Minnesota's 5th district, you would add hashtag MN05. If you have room, I'd also recommend that you mention that you are a constituent and mention that you just took action at their district office or plan to take action. As I said earlier, Congress responds most to calls and in-person action. And if you can get multiple people to tweet at them, even better. That can show momentum and that can attract attention from media. Next, I would recommend that you follow and tag local and state politics reporters in your live videos and actions. So once again, in addition to following your representatives online after this call, just take a few minutes to look up reporters from your area who cover politics. Elected representatives care a lot about local news coverage. Sometimes they care about it more than national news coverage. And so this is a great way to build relationships with reporters. And on the right, you'll see an example of a great tweet. Dozens of Senator Murkowski's constituents asked her to protect the Affordable Care Act. Some of these members staged weekly protests in her Anchorage office and followed it up with tweets and calls. And Murkowski was one of the 3 Republicans who, a couple summers ago, voted to protect the Affordable Care Act. On the next slide, I will be discussing how to reach companies. Companies are very responsive to social media pressure. Public perception is everything to them. So if you want to tag a company, be sure to tag their main Twitter account, but also look for their customer support team, which sometimes has a different Twitter account, and individual members of leadership, such as the CEO. To find a member of leadership, you'll Google search the company name plus leadership or plus CEO, find their name, and look them up on Twitter. Just make sure that you're tweeting at the correct person. Another way to get the company's attention is to use that company's promotional hashtag, i.e. hashtag AskTarget or hashtag Fair and Balanced, because the people who run the social media pages for those companies are looking through those hashtags every single day, and they will definitely see your posts. You also want to look for hashtags from progressive allies. For example, hashtag Drop Tucker or hashtag Mute R. Kelly. If you want a response, be sure to ask direct questions and mention your stake in the issue. For example, a tweet could say something like, I'm one of the 1 in 4 women who has had an abortion. At Google, why are you letting fake clinics lie to women about abortion? ? And you also want to make sure to include powerful images related to your campaign, ideally photos or videos you've taken from action. So you can see the image in the slide. In 2017, UltraViolet member Jean joined hundreds of other UltraViolet members in telling Fox News to drop Bill O'Reilly. Combined with massive protests at Fox News headquarters and our targeting of advertisers with our friends at Color of Change, Fox fired O'Reilly a week later. And you'll see here that her tweet has a lot of the key components I just talked about. A powerful image, she tagged the company, she used very direct language, and used a popular hashtag. We've done this time and time again, and you can also see a tweet at the bottom from one of our members around the Mute R. Kelly campaign, which I'll talk about a bit later. And similar to what we just talked about around Facebook events, in general, if you want your tweets to take off, you have to make your profile public, but that is not a requirement. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a bit about Facebook. Admittedly, it is a bit more difficult to get noticed by a decision maker on Facebook, but it is still a great way to get your friends interested in your action and connect with other constituents. Similar to Twitter, be sure to tag decision makers in your live videos, photos, and posts. And you do that with the @ symbol and typing their name. You can ask direct questions by visiting their Facebook page and leaving comments on their posts or tagging them in questions. And you can also encourage your friends to join you or ask your friends, hey, I just posted this comment, can you go and like it? But be warned that corporations are sometimes known for blocking people for doing this. Similar to Twitter, always emphasize if you're reaching out to a politician on Facebook, tell them that you're making calls or you plan on visiting their office. Ask your friends to share videos and pictures from those actions, and be sure to post photos and videos in big progressive Facebook groups. And you can tag a picture and tag your representative in that photo by going to a photo and clicking tag. And then last I want to mention is this really cool tool from Facebook called Constituent Badge. You should turn on your Constituent Badge so that politicians know that you are their constituent. So what you do is you go to facebook.com/townhall and add your address. You'll then be given the option to turn on a constituent badge, so any representative that you have in Congress especially sees your comments first. They prioritize your comments, and it's the main comment that you see. If someone's coming to that Facebook post and sees hundreds of comments, they'll see constituent comments first. And this also applies to comments that you've already made in the past. So to turn that on, you go to facebook.com/townhall. So as I just mentioned, the Facebook Constituent Badge is super helpful, but on this next slide, I have a few other helpful free tools that are helpful for Twitter, Instagram, and creating graphics. So we have Click to Tweet, which allows you to write up a tweet, create a short link, and then share it with people. So literally all they have to do is click, and it tweets something. And this is something that we use at UltraViolet all the time. Hootsuite is a free tool that allows you to schedule posts in advance. So if you're someone who doesn't want to go on Twitter every single day, but would prefer to just take an hour, schedule some posts, and then have it be done for the week, I'd recommend looking into that. And if you see great photos and videos from your actions on Instagram that you'd like to post onto your own account, download this thing called Repost for Instagram. It allows you to just repost on your page while giving credit to the original user. And then I would also recommend looking into Canva. If you want to create your own graphics but don't have Photoshop skills or Photoshop money, Canva is a free online design tool. You don't have to download anything. It's super user-friendly, and we sometimes use it for our original graphics at UltraViolet. So before I go into the next section, I want to see if you have any questions. If you do, please press 1 now. And I can get to maybe 1 or 2 of them. Great. Looks like we have a few people. First, I will go to Valerie in Illinois. Valerie, you have the mic.
Hi. Thanks for all the good work you do, by the way. I've been a candidate for office. I'm a candidate currently. I'm a little discombobulated here because I had trouble signing in and had to re-register and had to call the conference center in the Philippines. And then once I got in a half hour into it, the audio is kind of bad on my phone. Will you, in addition to having this presentation visible in terms of the slides, will you also have a video recording of it so that I don't lose kind of the, the back and forth in the questions and the ad lib?
Yes, we will. We'll be sending out, we're doing a screen recording right now, so we will send that out in the next couple of days. So there will definitely be a recording for you.
Great, thank you. I surely need it.
Thank you. Next, I will go to Mary in Michigan. Mary, you have the mic.
Hello. I'm a lurker on Twitter, and I lurk and watch my representatives and reporters I like. And I hadn't heard of this constituent badge before. Could you explain a little bit more about that? Who sees what I would tweet as a constituent? I mean, is it?
Yeah, so the
how widely
badge,
is it been advertised?
So that's a great question. The constituent badge is only available on Facebook. It is not available on Twitter. And this is something that Facebook launched maybe 2 years ago, right when they were getting a lot of heat around their around the 2016 election. They launched this in order to help politicians prioritize, the hundreds or thousands of comments that they get and help prioritize the ones from their constituents. And so this badge will apply to any comment that you leave on your representative's Facebook page, on a Facebook post that they may have, and it also applies to previous comments that you may have left on their Facebook page. So right now it only applies to Facebook, but you can learn more if you go to facebook.com/townhall.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to be conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to the next section, but there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. So now I want to talk about our final section, which is taking powerful photos and videos. Quality photos and videos are key to getting more people interested in your work, including friends, the media, and decision makers. I can see doing communications at UltraViolet, reporters often ask us for photos and videos from your actions if they cannot attend in person. These can also bring in new supporters. On the next slide, I have some tips for taking great photos. The main thing you want to think about is what you would want to see if you could not attend your action. So no matter the size of your action, always, always, always be sure to take at least one group photo. Just one group photo with everyone together with your props and signs can show the size of your movement, and it can get people who weren't at your action excited about supporting your cause. I know this can be easy to forget. Even from my own experience, I've definitely participated in drop-offs and forgotten to take photos, but it's important. And one way to avoid forgetting is to just take the picture right before your action or within the first few minutes so you don't have to worry about it later. Other great photos to get are pictures of people and families smiling and chanting, people marching, funny or powerful signs, walking into a decision maker's office, and unique props like an ice sculpture. And on the right, you'll see a photo of two UltraViolet members holding a massive banner that says, "Trump is racist and Paul Ryan is his enabler." And these members sent us this great picture after Trump called some Nazis in Charlottesville very good people. On the next slide, I have a few examples of more powerful photos from UltraViolet members. On the top right, we have a group photo from members who staged a protest in their senator's office to stop the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. You can see all of their signs in this group photo. And then below that is a photo of UltraViolet campaigner Emma at a Dump Trump rally outside of the 2017 U.S. Women's Open tournament, which was shockingly held at Donald Trump's golf course. And then next to that, on the left, you see a member took a great action shot of a domestic violence survivor talking to her representative. And above that, I took this picture of 3 young women outside of the Department of Education, each holding up signs demanding Betsy DeVos listen to campus survivors of sexual assault and protect Title IX. This year, UltraViolet was proudly a part of the large Black women-led movement to mute R. Kelly. In January, Sony Music, the parent company of RCA Records, finally dropped R. Kelly. And so this photo on the far left is from a rally that we co-organized in front of Sony's headquarters in New York City. And you can see our campaigner, Sonia, at the stand, and there's lots of signs from UltraViolet and other groups. I took this photo and posted it on Twitter, tagging RCA, and our tweets from this action reached hundreds of thousands of people, and within a few days, RCA dropped R. Kelly. On the next slide, I have some tips for recording amazing videos and broadcasting live. First, I have a Facebook Live guide that will give 10 best practices on how to have a successful Facebook Live. I'm not going to go through it right now, but you can access the presentation. You can access it in the presentation link that you received from us. And just some quick main tips. 1, make your live stream public. I know that we keep harping on this a lot, but it really will help you reach a massive amount of new supporters versus having it private. And it can also allow UltraViolet to share your video. 2, be sure to write an exciting and short caption that gets people interested. You see an example on the slide from our Mute R. Kelly protest from January, but another example of a great caption that I saw some UltraViolet members use was just, quote, "I'm live with 20 women to tell Senator Murkowski to protect immigrant families." It was short and to the point. If you don't have a reliable connection, record a normal video on your phone and you can post it to social media after the event. Because I know that that can be the case sometimes if you're in, a senator's office is in the basement or in a lot of brick, but you can just record a normal video and post later. And some other types of events that you should live stream include protests and sit-ins, bird dogging, asking questions at town halls, and petition deliveries or drop-offs. So I know that was quick, but those are some of the basic tips for photo and video, and I will give it back to Ryan to close us out.
Thank you. All right, so we will open it up for questions in just a sec. I just want to quickly sort of signpost everything that we went over today. First, we talked about some background and why social media is important for organizing. Next, we talked about a couple specific Facebook tools that you can use to mobilize in your community. Natalie went over how to reach decision makers and politicians on social media, including tweeting at elected officials or using the Constituent Facebook Badge. And then lastly, we just went over taking powerful photos and videos and with some examples and how to do broadcasting live. So with that, we have a few minutes left for questions, comments, or examples. We definitely want to take as many of these as possible before we hit the top of the hour. So if you have a burning question or something you'd love to share with the group, please press 1 on your phone. All right, let's go to Annette in Arizona. Annette, you have the mic. Annette, are you there? All right, we will try to come back to Annette, who's maybe having some technical difficulties, as one does. Let's go to Mariah in New York. Mariah, you have the mic.
Hi there. Thanks for this presentation, guys. I was wondering if you have other recommendations to social media planning software other than Hootsuite. I run a nonprofit and organization on all of the platforms, and I dislike Hootsuite because it doesn't let me plan Instagram stories, and it doesn't let me do slideshows on Instagram as well. I've been looking into like Planoly. I know Opal is huge and probably too big for my use. I also want some analytics. So do you have any suggestions?
That is a great question. There's one in particular that I'm going to look through my inbox to find real fast because I will say that I haven't found one that I particularly like for scheduling Instagram posts. I schedule general Instagram posts on Hootsuite, but haven't really found anything great for Instagram stories or for the slideshows. So I don't know of one there, but I do know of one that is really great for analytics. So
great.
I'll let us go to other questions, and then I'll be sure to bring it up before the end of the call.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I can see who else has their hand up. Let's go to...
I was on mute.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry. I was saying let's go to Deborah in California. Deborah, go for it. You have the mic. Nope, I think we lost Deborah. All right, let's go to Kathy in Texas. Kathy, you have the mic.
Howdy, Ryan and Natalie.
Howdy.
Excellent job. I'm taking furious notes to be able to share with the others. First is suggestion, can you do another one? I will even send you money, like $20, and I'm sure 100 other people would, to do another one of these and with more notice so we can send it to more people because of a lot of crap stuff has been going on to show how to use Instagram and Canva. That's point 1. And point 2, question, what would you do? What would you suggest to do with a Facebook group page that gets less and less traffic, very few folk, hardly utilizing anymore when Move On started? So we started Move On Houston, Congressional District 18, and there was a lot of actions, and Move On was doing great. But now there's Indivisible and Panther Nation and Healthcare for All Texas and Medicare for a bunch of other stuff, and it's just buried. And I begged to millennials and other people, younger people, can somebody step up and take over and move on Houston? Like, nobody's doing anything with it, and you could for all the democracy stuff. I'm going to turn it over to UltraViolet pretty soon. And somebody wrote back, don't do that. So, what would you do?
Great question.
I can answer the first
point.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Natalie, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, to your first point, I would definitely recommend there's an opportunity for you to give us feedback on this training. So if you are interested in future trainings around social media, please be sure to let us know in the feedback. And if other people are interested, definitely mention it. I'm more than happy to do these trainings. Just want to make sure it's something that would be useful for a lot of people, especially around Instagram
Would you
and
do
Canva.
one on another platform, on another conference call through Maestro Conference? They do good work. So,
yeah,
like
we could definitely do
all...
something like that.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to suggest you. I need your email.
Yeah, definitely do. Well, we'll go over the feedback section in a little bit, and there will be a form where you can add your suggestions for future topics. So definitely do that there. And I appreciate that. And then, Ryan, do you have thoughts on the second part of that question around Facebook groups and competing with, other groups?
What do you do with it?
I mean, so, to use UltraViolet as an example, and some of you might even be in this Facebook group, we had an UltraViolet Facebook group for, dedicated members called UltraViolet Action Squad. And over the last year, we've, since, decided that it was, defunct because it took so much time, it took so much effort. We didn't, know anybody who was really in the group, on a one-on-one basis. So I think we just, dropped it. I really think Facebook groups are great if you already have, an existing network of people who regularly, do stuff together in person. So, one example is, I have a group of friends that I regularly watch RuPaul's Drag Race with every week. And we have a Facebook group for ourselves just to, talk about things from week to week. And that's a really good, a type of platform to use for that. But I think unless, you actually have people who are interacting in real life and are actually making plans, Facebook groups can be hard, and equally as hard might be to know when it's time to pull the plug or just, sort of let something die a peaceful death.
Do we just go in and delete it? Right into Facebook and say delete?
You can do that. I think you can post a message in the group saying we're going to give this to the end of next week or something. And so if there are connections and folks who want to stay active, you can give people options maybe start an email list or, if someone says they want to take over the reins, let them do that. Or you can also just let it exist in perpetuity and might not need to delete it if you don't want to.
All right.
But yeah,
thank you for that.
Great question. Yeah, thank you for that. We are at the top of the hour, so I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. I will pass it back. Well, first I'll say if there are questions we didn't get to, and I see a lot of people with their hands up, please send us feedback, or you can email us your questions at events@weareultraviolet.org. Again, that is events@weareultraviolet.org. Send us any questions you have there, or also on the feedback form, which I will pass back to Natalie to just wrap up the last couple slides.
Great. And I want to say to the earlier question about scheduling Instagram posts, I haven't used it yet, but I would recommend looking at later.com, which is a marketing platform that's specific for scheduling Instagram posts. I haven't used it, but I've heard good things about it. And then something that I have used a trial for right now is SmarterQ. And SmarterQ gives you a lot of deep insights into previous posts you've done on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for Twitter specifically, it'll show you, the free trial will show you the types of posts that do best on your page so that you can just replicate over and over again. So that's SmarterQ and later.com. So I want to thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. Please let us know what you thought of this training. Go to weareultraviolet.org/feedback to fill out a brief survey. Your responses will help us improve our ongoing training efforts. And lastly, be sure to stay connected with us. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram under @WeAreUltraViolet and on Twitter @UltraViolet. And to get our most pressing campaign actions, sign up for mobile updates by texting feminist to 40649. So that's feminist to 40649. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.